point that I'm passionate about what I'm doing, and what I'm really trying to do is I want to impart the knowledge and everything to my students, and then I want them to use it and become successful. And then when they do, I want to say, wow, that makes it worthwhile. That gives meaning to my life, to me. Yeah, so every time I think of the students that's achieved in the past, but then guess what? I always think of the best student, and then I think of the worst student. Okay? And then when I think of the worst student, I think to myself, where did I go wrong? Or was it them that never really wanted it? And even if a student of mine doesn't really want it, I still have to make sure that at the end of the day, I have set them off on a good path wherever they want to go. You know how people are. If you're in a class of students and the teacher doesn't like you, then the teacher will make it very clear that they don't like him, and they've got their little pets. You know what I'm saying? Who's experienced that at school? Yeah, I don't ever want my students to expect it. Even the worst student must expect that I'm still trying my best to that student, even though I'm also trying to with all students equally. Because it happens when you're going to probably feel it more with Tracy than with me, because I don't really see you. But you will feel how you get attention. And you are now at college. It's not school anymore. You can't say, but I didn't get any attention. No. You're adults now. You've got to demand attention. You've got to demand what you want to learn. You've got to demand what you want. Okay? Each of us has got something we want out of the school, out of the teacher, out of the lecture. And you've got to demand it. Okay? But don't demand it on the side. Go and ask for it, because that's going to help you. So why I'm saying this thing about I'm passionate and I want you to reach your goals and all of that is because we're going to now just evaluate the designs a little bit. I'm going to be talking to you about classic design. But before I talk about classic design and evaluate, I always have like a preamble. I'm repeating things to get to classic design. So I'm watching the watch, so I don't spend too much time on my preamble, my introduction into the class. But it is worth noting and repeating. So I always write this on the board whenever I begin. You'll see whenever I begin a lecture, I will write 4 things on the board with a line in between. You should, through repetition, you'll get to know what it is. Okay, who can tell me what is the first thing?
I know them all, but I don't know the order.
Don't worry about the order. I'll put it in the right order. Any word? Brief. You see why they focus on brief now? Is because these 2 students are in internships. So I'm very focused that they get the briefs right. Okay, you are now new. So I'm focusing with you not on the brief now. I'm focusing you on the first thing, which is
skills.
Skills, yeah. So as long as you get the right skills and the briefs, you can get your diploma. And if I'm happy that you're up to the standard in terms of skills and brief, then it's fine. So don't worry. You had a little brief with me on CTC. You had a little brief now with me recently this week on Mumbo, right? Don't worry about that. I'm not focusing you on getting it right or anything, okay? But I'm just saying, when you get to the second half of the course and you're doing internships, then you'll learn all about briefs and the importance of briefs, okay? What is the other 2? So the line in between there is, because this is where you get your diploma. Okay, your skills are good and your briefs understand, you get your diploma. But when you go at an internship or when you go to a work, this is like this is like they expect that. You can't come and say, I've got all the Corel Draw skills and all the Photoshop skills and all the Illustrator skills right here in front of the computer, and now they give you a brief and you've got all the skills and you don't follow their brief. Then it doesn't matter how well it's done, if it's not matching the brief, they'll say, he's only going to, unless then they give you like a probation period. He's got to come right now in 2 weeks. He's got the skills, now we're going to teach him, this is the way we like things done. This is the way we want things done, and then you come right after 2 weeks or so. Okay, but a company's success and what they really want is they want a performance. No, it's not called performance. They want to call it productivity, and it's interrelated, and you'll find it at internships a lot. And they want efficiency. And I think I've explained it to you before. Efficiency. C1. Okay. Don't worry about spelling. So efficiency is how efficiently do you do something, how smart do you work, how clever it is, and productivity is how can you produce more in less time. So if you've got 1 hour, if you can produce more in that 1 hour than anybody else, you're productive. And efficiency is how well you do it. So in other words, if they realize, a company realizes you can do 10 products out in 1 hour, and the other person, you can only do 10. 10 is the maximum. And another company comes and in the 1 hour they do 5. Then they must have worked smarter, because the norm is 10 is the limit. So you're always wanting to improve on the limit. It's like running the mile in so many seconds. If you can do it in less seconds, you're smarter. You figured out something smarter as well. Okay, so there we go. This is when you do internships or when you get a job, but this is when you do learning. Okay. Now, mostly what I'm focusing on my lectures is I'm focusing on the basic of design. And you would have noticed that I would talk about classic design, and classic is basic design. So I'm focusing on classic and the other two. And I've already had a whole lecture on the one style. But you're all going to have now a lecture on the second style. But on the first style that you've missed the lecture on, it is on YouTube, but I will have it with you as well as a group. So when I have that class, try and remember, try to stay focused, because that is very important in learning your design skills. So what is this one? Grunge. Okay, so you've got an understanding of grunge, but you can have a lecture with me with grunge, which is great. And the other one? Pop art. Okay, so if you've got to explain grunge in 2 words. Emotion and texture. Those are the 2 most important words. Emotion and texture. Which is the 2 most important words in pop art? No?
Color?
No?
Lines?
No? No?
Shapes.
No? The key word I'm looking for. You know keywords? Keyword. Keyword is emotion. Keyword. You see with emotion you can say, oh, it's always dark, and you can, there's many words, so you are right, but what is the keyword? All of those things, light and dark and texture and everything, is describing emotion. But mostly it's about texture as opposed to offsetting text and whatever. Texture comes in more dominant. That's sort of the thing that comes in the most dominant is texture. And always emotion. It's like when you look at it, you're unsure.
Is pop not fun?
Yes, that's the key word. It's fun. And now I'm going to give you another word that you haven't really thought about, but I call it busy. I say the design is busy. What do I mean when I say design is busy? There's a lot happening. A lot of elements, a lot of things happening. There's an effect, and there's an effect, and there's another picture, and there's another picture, and there's another icon. Now it's an icon, a picture, a shape. It's so busy. It's like they're trying to take everything about design and just cram it into one layout. Whereas grunge is not trying to get everything about design, they are trying to get a message across, an emotion across. Here the emotion that they're getting across is fun, but it's because it's so busy. So those are the, I would say, the keywords, and I'll keep on coming back to it. But in classic design, you don't want to create emotion, texture, fun, busy. What is the key thing you want to create in?
Harmony.
Harmony. Okay, so let's relate it to okay, I just want to relate it to music. So if you're relating classic to music, would it be an orchestra type of music or would it be a band? Orchestra, right? Because it's harmony. Everybody's got to play in harmony, and okay. A band can be a little bit all over the place. Pop art is when your band is very full. You've got everything going in the band. I don't know. The lead singer and the drummer is important, and everybody's important. Okay, I don't know. Okay. Right, now going back to classic and to harmony. Harmony is the key thing you're trying to create in the classic art. And what is the other thing you want to create?
Balance.
Balance. Or symmetry. So when you create balance or symmetry is when two things are exactly the same, just flipped over. Like a butterfly is symmetrical because the one half is the same as the other half. That's why it's perfectly balanced, because if you put it in the middle, there's a symmetry. But if you have a design, it can still be balanced if the one is on top there and the other element is here, then it's still balanced. You see how it balances? So you can still have balance with a different object and a different object as long as it balances out. But as soon as something is very dark, it creates the illusion of being heavy, and then it feels like it wants to drop. Okay? So its balance is quite important as well. Okay, cool. Now when you get to do your internship with me, remember okay, so when you do your skills section and your brief section, that is sort of before you go to an internship. Now when you hit an internship, what makes an internship successful and what makes an internship not successful? So I'm talking about now the main thing that makes an internship successful and not successful. So the main thing that will make an internship successful, if they've got those two things. If the student can have the skills and understand the briefs, they are most likely to be successful at the internship. But it's not a guarantee. What is another biggest thing that influences the success of the internship, do you think? Because I want you just to be aware of it. Because remember, as we complete the modules, it's getting towards an internship and making a success of an internship. Because if you make a success of an internship, boy, your first job next year, you're going to just be employed. What do you think is the key thing then that's going to determine the success of your internship in this part? I'll give you a clue. Art director is the clue. So if you go to an internship, what's going to determine whether you're going to be successful or not there? Let's take Tyler for an example, guys, because you two are at an internship, but you are at an easy internship. Tyler's at a difficult internship. Why is Tyler at a difficult internship? Do you think Tyler has the skills? Yes. Do you think Tyler can understand the brief? Then why was he not successful at CTC? The art director, the boss was the problem.
The communication, instructions.
Yes, the brief. He was good at understanding the brief here, but when he had to understand the brief from the art director.
Interpretation.
Yes, so in other words, this art director is the person that you are taking instructions from and taking the brief from. And the problem is not always that you that can't understand the brief. It could be the person, the art director, giving the instructions that's giving it wrong. You agree? How can they give the instructions wrong? Well, they can say to you, the client wants something done. I'm not going to explain it to you. Go and get it from the email. Now, they have been at the company for years. When they get the instruction from on the email and they know the client, there's already a vibe going. So the client is not going to explain everything. The client is not going to say, oh, by the way, I'm going to explain to you everything again. Okay, Justin was the art director at CTC. So in the email, they're not going to put the wording there, oh, by the way, put in the logo on this design. Or they're not going to say that. Why? Because they expect that you already know it by now. Because I told you right in the beginning, so I'm not going to tell you again. But if you're new, like Tyler, and he gets there, he might not know that the logo must be in or must not be in. You know what I'm trying to say? So in other words, the person that is the art director has got to brief the student or the designer, and the art director is not communicating right, or is not taking interest in giving the brief, or he's expecting the person to just know it. And if the person gives the work back, he might just not give him some feedback. He might just say, okay, that's fine. Okay, that's fine. Remember, guys, if you at a new company and somebody gives you a brief and you present it and they say, okay, that's fine, on the first and the second and the third time, you know something is wrong. Because how can something be okay the first time? You got to be really good. And it's not to say you're really good. It could be you don't know the culture of the company, the design structure of the company, what they want. You can ask Tyler. Tyler now worked for CTC, which is a clothing company. Now he's working for A1 Printworks, which is also a clothing company. The biggest difference is the one is using screen printing to create the designs on the clothing, and the other one is using digital printing method on stretch material. So they're using two different printing processes. Now it's the same design, but there's two different processes. So they might ask for the design in slightly different ways. Right? So now, just because you know one area, it's not going to say you can apply everything that you've learned to the other company. You've still got to understand that the way the company wants things done. So every art director is different and is expecting different things from you. So no art director is the same. They're all different. So your art director is sort of your boss, okay? But they're all different. So you've got to not only learn the skills and the brief, you now suddenly have to learn how to adapt to an art director that could be different. So what is the key things to be successful to react to an art director that is different? I wonder if I mentioned it to you before. But what would be the key thing? What do you think would be the key thing for you to understand the brief of an art director?
Maybe really listening.
Listening is one thing, yes?
Ask some questions.
Ah! Let's put it in caps. If you're not asking questions, the problem lies with you. You. Even if it's about, start off by asking the most stupidest question. So, what would be the most obvious question that you would ask after he's briefed you? What would be the most obvious question? And he wouldn't even mind if you repeat it. When? When do you want it by? When is the deadline? Because he might not tell you when the deadline is. And then you think it's going to be done 2 days. The when is the most, and even if you repeat it 10 times, he's not going to shout at you because of when. But when is the most important thing. Because remember, every art director that is different has got in their mind an expectation. Believe it or not, when an art director gives you a brief, he is expecting that you would do it the way he sees it in his mind, because he has given you the brief of what's in his mind. And if you don't ask questions, you got to probe his mind to see how does he want it. You hear what I'm saying? Now, the most easiest design that always wins is if you do it the classic way. And then you start understanding the way they want it. So once you do it the classic way, then you can understand. That is why I'm teaching you the classic way first. Because in the first 3 months, do classic. In the 6 months and on, do grunge and pop art. To offer something different all the time. Okay? Because you've got to meet the expectations. And the most important thing is when. When must it be done by? Okay, so questions. What is the other way to improve the art directing things? The one is questions. I'm going to just do 2. The 2 most important ones. So if I gave you a brief and you ask me questions, and you say, like, when is it done by? Then I say, it's going to be done by. And you ask me the next question. So at least ask 3 or 4 questions before you leave. I'm actually going to demand it from you guys from now on. When I brief, I'm going to ask you to ask me questions and repeat the first question first. When do you want it done by? Okay, so just a bit on my experience. I'm the art director when it comes to Jade. Who's the art director when it comes to Colin? Okay. Do you always know when it's got to be done by?
Not all the time.
Okay, so it's your fault, eh? You must ask. And then once you presented it, how would you know if it is correct or not correct? No, you don't ask. You can ask, but usually something happens.
Can you say that again?
Okay, so let's say here's your design. Okay, so you get the brief, eh? Here's the brief. Okay, and there's the 2 of you together at the brief. Right, now you ask the questions, you know now exactly how it's going to be done, you know when. Okay, so now you present it to him, you give it to him. It's on time, it's done. Now what do you want to know when you give it? This is the brief, this is the presentation.
To correct it, to give you feedback.
Yes, give me feedback. Is it correct? Is it correct? Is it what you expected? Is it what was expected? Is it correct? Is it correct? Those are the things you want to know. Is it approved?
Does it meet their expectations?
Yes, in other words, is it approved? Is it meeting expectation? Is it going to sell? Or are you going to now go and sell it to the client and be happy? Is it going to go into the newspaper now? Is the ad going to be used? So that's at the presentation time. How do you know if it's correct or not correct? Because something will usually happen, and this must always happen. Just like you always ask questions, you must know. You give it, let him give it for a while, and 10 minutes later go back to the person if you don't get any feedback, because you want feedback now. Right? So you ask the thing, what are the corrections? Or the amendments. They call it the amendments or the corrections or the changes. What are the changes? What are the corrections? Okay, so Colin, you are recording, Colin?
Yeah.
Okay, so Colin will know that once I've briefed Colin and Colin does it and he shows it to me, it's done. There's always going to be corrections. It's very seldom that there's not corrections. But if we've been working a long time together, it's usually there won't be any corrections. But so Colin, we do social media marketing, right? So every week we have a MailChimp design, we have a WhatsApp design, and we have a Facebook design. So I will give Colin the corrections on it. And then he will ask me or expect that I'll give him ask for corrections. Or if I don't have any corrections, then he'll say, is it okay? Because before it gets presented to the client or gets published, it must be approved. Okay, and how do I usually approve it with you, Colin? I say, good to go. Good to go, approved, done. Okay, he'll say it's done, I get the design, and now he wants to know at least about an hour or two later or 10 minutes later, it's good to go, it's approved. So the time from the expectation to the approval, that's a short time. That can be 30 minutes, maybe an hour. This is the brief. That usually takes about, let's say it takes about 20 minutes. A brief should take about 20 minutes. You shouldn't be spending too long just briefing a person on something. How long from the brief to the presentation usually? On average? Oh, you do a design in 30 minutes.
Give it at least a day.
Yes! At least a day. Come on, give me a day. Even if it takes me 30 minutes, give me a day. Expect it the next day. Very seldom will you get an art director, whatever, or they'll say, if you start it in the morning, give it to me by the end of the day. Okay, so there's a time. You know when it's going to be done. Usually they'll give you a day, or show me the next morning, or show me at the end of the day. There's usually a day. Okay? But from the moment that day is over, there's a presentation, to the 30 minutes, don't wait another day and wait for him to get back to you. Go and ask. Because you know what happens is they get the presentation from you, and then you get no feedback, and then you see they've gone and done it themselves. And then they come next day to you, they give you a presentation, they give you a brief, you do the presentation, and then they've gone and done it themselves. And by the third time, by the fourth time, they won't even ask you for the brief anymore. Because if they keep doing it themselves, why keep asking you? Why keep on briefing you and expecting a presentation if they don't use your presentation? Then they'll do it themselves. Then it means you're going to lose out. Okay? So there has to be a presentation that's approved. And it takes about 30 or 40 minutes. And then what are the corrections? Because changes are always made. It's almost like human nature. And if I find I don't ask for a change, then it's got to be really good, because there's always a way I can improve on it. Okay? So there'll be one or two corrections. But after the changes are made, you don't go back and you ask for changes again. And then go back and you ask for changes again. You should only be asking for changes once or twice. Maybe twice. Once, maybe twice. Okay, so you did an ad now design recently for a client. So let's just quickly go through her. She did a nice retail ad for a client. I liked it. It was great. just remember, retail is different to the classic and the grunge and the pop. As soon as you got a list of products, like doing a catalog and a list of products, it's not really the same as this. We are mostly focusing on brochures, adverts, banners. But retail means there's a product, a picture, and a price. A product, a picture, and a price. So it's more like a list. Okay, but okay, let me just quickly ask you, Megan.
Yeah.
You had a brief with a client.
Yes.
Right. How long did that brief take?
Well,
Sorry, let me ask you a question. Was it a personal brief or was it via email brief?
it was via Zoom meeting.
Okay. And how long did that Zoom meeting take?
It was probably about 40 minutes
Right.
because he doesn't have, it's not coming from an art director point of view, it's more coming from I've got a shop, I need this is so.
I'm the owner.
Yes, so for me personally, I still need to set up from my side is a structure that I can give clients to, like me coming from an art director perspective. So
Okay, all right,
but,
okay.
But anyway.
But then you're going to have to think of him as you the designer, then he becomes the art director.
Yes.
Because he's briefing you.
Yes, but I need to give but this I know it's complicated, but I know I need to give him a structure so that he can fall into, so that he can become an art director too.
Yes. Good.
So that's what I'm.
Good.
That's why the.
You're gonna educate him.
Yes,
Okay,
yes, in order
alright.
to so that he knows in future
Yeah.
how to give me instructions.
Yes. Okay. But let's just say, for example, that you had a brief with him for more or less 30 minutes.
Yes.
Right.
Yes.
Then you did the presentation, and how long did it take you more or less?
Well, I usually he gives me usually like 2 to 3 days.
Good.
So,
you can take a day or two, doesn't matter.
Yeah.
We always make it a goal that we design a whole website for a client in 3 days, and they expect it in a week, but we give it to them in 3 days. So he was expecting it in 3 days, but you could have given it to him in a day.
Yeah, I did give him like a day earlier because he knows I've got college and this is my
Yes.
priority, so he understands.
Right. How long before you got the feedback? So the feedback is the period before you get the final approval, because there's usually corrections.
Yeah, well, it's quite quick. It's anything from the one design he got back to me immediately, and the other like 3 hours later.
Good. So can you see the difference in time from the brief to the presentation compared to the presentation and the corrections? And then once you made the corrections, how many corrections did you do?
Not much. It was quick.
No, but I mean, it was, what I'm saying is, after you made the corrections and you presented to him, was he happy? Was it approved? Or did he send it back for corrections?
No, it was
approved. So can you see, after the presentation, you are really going to this step first, to the corrections and then to the approval. You with me?
Yeah.
Okay, so that's just the process that works from art director to you who's designing it. And you've got to make sure that you're successful. You as the designer must make sure that is part of this successful. And when you're doing the brief, to make sure the brief is successful, ask the questions. Now I'm going to give you another tip, which I also want. So the question is asking when, but I'm going to give you another tip. So remember it. Do it. Don't wait for the client to ask you for it. Just do it. So, I'm going to do it. What name shall I give it? I'm going to call it a progress WhatsApp.
Like a progress update.
Yeah. But do it via WhatsApp because the guy doesn't have time to chat with you. You see the person that's giving you the brief expects a day later that you'll do the presentation and he'll give you the corrections. But in that day, he doesn't want to be bothered. You know what I'm saying? In other words, I've given you the brief. Why do you keep coming back to me? But keep coming back to him is going to improve that you are meeting the expectation. So you ask a question at the brief. Now the next day you're still asking questions, and the next day you are gradually going to get it right. But it's going to become very irritable for the person if you keep on coming back to him. That is why the way that you do it is you can say, look, this is my progress so far. I'm giving it to you. WhatsApp, am I on track? Then he's look at it and then he will see if you're on track more or less. So what I'm saying is, don't show the completed one. Just show a section. a part of it. Let me give you an example on your one. So you did a design, right? And it was a list of products.
Yes.
And you know that you're going to put in on the template the logo and the contact details. The thing that really makes the design is going to be the heading. Not so?
Yeah.
And maybe an image, if you are using an image in your header part. Let's just quickly have a look at it.
Okay, let me just send it to you.
Okay, and then how would a typical product look? So if you showed him just that section, or am I on track with this section? Then you're not showing him the whole design, but he's got a feel of how that section is going to look. So show him about half of it. And half of the ad is not the rest. It's just the most important part of the ad. So when you do this progress WhatsApp, it's just going to see if you... And guess what? How I prefer it from you. And Colin knows it as well. You can just take me a screenshot of the computer. I think you've also done it. We have just asked for a screenshot of your computer. It's not like you are saving it as a JPEG and then giving it to me on WhatsApp. How quick and easy does it just... Here's your screen. You're busy working on it. Now I'm working on a very important part of the design. I can quickly take a WhatsApp and just say, am I on track? And you forward it to me and I can say, yep, thumbs up, you're on track, or, whoa, watch out for this. You didn't quite interpret you know what I'm saying? So that just makes sure that you have asked the right questions at the brief and that the brief is more or less on track. So you show it halfway through. Is that the day?
Yeah.
Okay. You all got your cell phones, eh? Ag, kan jy dit net gou forward na die groep?
Ek is klaar.
Oh, okay. There we go. Right. So I just want to show you that design part, right? So in terms of classic design, in terms of classic design, where you get it right in classic design, you are expecting a headline and a footer and a logo at the bottom. So it's not like you have to say to him, am I on track with the address and the logo? It's like you're going to put a logo and address in there. But the key thing in here is not even the products, because you have talked about the products already. But what you could say is maybe this, what would you say is the most important thing in that design? That is the most important thing. Wouldn't you say? And what would you say was her most? So if you had to send me a WhatsApp just of that, let's just say of that, and you can say to me, hi Calvin, how do you like me using this motherboard as a design element? What? Because that might not have been discussed in the brief. You know what I'm saying? And then he might say, gee, that's a good idea. And then he might say, no, the motherboard is not a good idea because I'm focusing on this and this. You see what I'm saying? You can just say, do you like the motherboard idea? Am I on track with your design? Do you like it so far? Just something like that. And you look at it and says, yes. And look at it. Then he might say, no. Put the prices bigger. Or is that what you save? Or is that the original price?
It was the original price. That's
okay, so it's normally 1.8 and now you're getting it for 1.6. So will people understand that it's normally this? Or do you want me to or is this the saving and it's normally double that price? You see, so that's the sort of question I would have asked if I was because it's not to say that
maybe put was.
Put the was. You see,
like
was 500.
Yeah.
So now I would have then said, okay, put the was there. Then you know that was the price and this is the new price. You see, so in other words, these are the questions that he'll quickly come up and he'll ask you. And then what will happen there? It will make the presentation and the correction so much easier. And guess what? You don't have to go and show the final product. You can show it from the screen. On the screen, and then you know if you're on track. And you know what? He's expecting it in the next day. So if you show it to him the end of the day, are you on track or your progress so far? then he knows, number one, that you're working on it, you're not doing nothing, so it's a big plus. And number two, you'll know if you're on track. Okay, so that's also what I do at times, is to show the progress of something. Okay, guys, I just want to leave it there for the moment. So I'm just going to say to you, even if you were working for CTC and you were working for Justin, and Justin was difficult, you could just say, hey, pop around, look at my screen. Am I on track? Is this what you wanted? Is this what you expect? Because number one is you are trying to meet his expectations. But remember, there are guidelines that you're working within. You're not going to keep on asking him every 5 minutes. Okay? So there's still guidelines that you are working in. Alright, so that's it. Now, keep asking questions and showing progress WhatsApps. Are you doing it with me?
I haven't done it in this week.
Okay, now remember.
I've always seen it as.
Yeah, but you see, I'm doing like a beginner internship with you. I'm not putting pressure on you in terms of when. But we have to talk about that, because I'm not really putting you on the pressure. Neither am I putting you on the pressure in terms of when. You see, with the beginning internships, I don't want to put pressure onto you in terms of how quick you must do it, how soon you must do it. I'd rather give you 2 days when something has got to be done in 1 day. I'd rather give you 2 days to do it. So that time is not the issue. That the issue is just show, are you asking the questions? Are you understanding it? Is expectations right? And are you progressing? So I'll give you an example. Jade did a presentation to me, right? And I've got to now either give her the corrections, or I'm going to say, no, give me a new design. So I decided rather to ask her to give me a new design, a better design. Because when you do the brief, she followed the brief. It's got a brief has got what's got to go inside the ad, right? The content, the wording, and the pictures. And she chose the right wording and the right pictures, but I wasn't happy with the design. So we briefed the design again. And then I took her to the coffee shop and we had a proper brief. Said, no, but you see now we're following this and we did it properly. And then she gave the end result, which was, I want you to look at it, it's that one. That was her end result. And then I asked Tracy to comment, to choose one, and Tracy also chose this one after I gave her proper brief. Now, it's not to say that the other design that he created is wrong. It's not to say it's wrong. It's still got the content. But as we analyze it as a class, you'll see that it's drifting further and further away. It's got the right content. It's got the right pictures, so it can go. But it's not following the design principles. And that is why that one sells better. So, I want to now, when I talk to you today, I want to go again through the design principles and the classic design principles that everybody can look at. And at the end of the day, if all your designs look the same, it's good. Why? Because there was a brief with an expectation, you managed to do the expectation. Now, where is your creativity then involved if you're just giving the person what he wants? Where's your creativity? Nowhere. You're right. Nowhere, nowhere, nowhere. So, how do you bring in your creativity? You see, if you, look, it's easy for you to bring in your creativity. Why? Because the design, the brief wasn't pushing you on terms of exactly how he wants it. He's leaving it mostly up to you. The creativity, the direction, he's leaving up to you. So you are, in actual fact, taking the role for yourself as the art director and the designer. Because the creativity part depends on the art director, not the designer, the art director. Because the art director can go to the client and start getting creative and sell that creativity to the owner that's going to buy it. And then he can brief the designer in terms of the creativity. So let me ask you a very simple question, not too complicated. who do you think has got more creative license? The person that has been at the company for 1 month, or the person that's been at the company for 12 months? Who do you think can be more creative?
The person that's been there for 1 month.
Why?
Because the longer you are at a company, you get used to their rules and regulations, so you get more boxed in. Obviously, you get expectations, exceptions, and so forth. But the person that comes in new, it's coming with new energy. They don't have that borders yet. So, yeah.
Right. She says 1 month. I say that the person that's got 12 months can be more creative. So I'm going to give you my reasons why I think. I've heard her reasons. And I'm going to say to you that a client will very seldom change their culture and their structure and their way of doing it to the new person moving in. Very seldom. They'll say, wonderful, great stuff. Oh, we don't want to discourage you. But very slowly, they'll mold you into their way. And that's when you want to leave. Because you feel your creativity gets boxed in.
But you have to be more creative to be creative in a box.
Yes, but you've got to be able to sell your creativity. And you've got a better chance to sell your creativity if you are the art director. Right, so I just want to quickly... This is a very important point. Guys, I know I'm jumping off a little bit. But when you do internships, you have to understand the different roles that there is. What are the 3 different roles? Always, and sometimes you're wearing different hats. What are the 3 different roles in a company when you design? Okay, you've got at the end the client, right? This is the guy with the money. He's the client. So if you present the client something, and let's say you've presented your design to the client, and he comes back to you the next day, and he says, oh, I thought it was fantastic, but my wife didn't like it. At the end of the day, he's paying. And he wants to please his wife. So he's going to make the changes his wife wants. Why? Because he's got a stronger relationship with his wife than he has with you. Whereas if you're in the company a month and the guy that's been there 12 months, who's he got the strongest relationship with? Yeah. The guy with the 12 months. You're always going to go with the guy that you've got the strongest relationship with. Okay? So, you've got the client, then you've got the art director, and then you've got the graphic designer. And I don't want you to call yourself graphic designers, I want you to call yourself digital designers. It's the same thing. A digital designer and a graphic designer is the same thing, except everything is moving digital. In other words, it's very seldom you're going to print out the ad. The ad is probably going to be as a PDF mailed to the client's list of clients. Okay, so there's this. This is the interaction. Okay. So when you're doing an internship or when you're working at a company, someone is going to give you the work. So there's a mix-up between the client, because is the client the boss of the company, or is the client the boss of the company's clients?
Wow. Yeah.
Okay, I'll give you a clue. You want me to give you a clue? Who's the client? The one who pays is the client.
Yeah.
Okay.
So the art director and the art directors, the CEO of the company can be the bosses, they're not the client.
And the client is paid.
Yes.
Okay? So in other words, the actual client is the one who pays. Okay, so the art director and the boss of the company, or the CEO, let's call him the boss, or the CEO, it could be all within the company, but at the end of the day, it's got to be presented to the client. It's got to be presented to the client. The client's got to like it. It's got to present it. Now, you as a digital designer, do you present yours to the art director or to the boss?
Art director.
Usually the art director, but it could be the boss. You present it to the boss, directly to the boss. Mostly it's the art director, but it could be the boss. Okay? Now, it depends on the size of the company. So, let's talk about the size of the company. When you have a company and you've got the little room where you sit with your computer as a designer, there's your little computer desk and you are the designer there. If you walk into the room and there's one computer, one workstation for one designer, and there is only one computer, one person, then it means the art director at that company has got to do all the designs. So it means there's not two people working on the artwork, but only one. So that means that that designer is presenting to the boss within the company, who's then presenting to the client. Right? So he presents to the boss presents to the client. The longer they work together, the longer they get to know what the client wants, then the boss stops presenting to the client and the designer presents directly to the client. Once the boss is happy and he's selling it to the client and it starts selling, whatever you do as a designer, he puts a lot of faith in you, and then you can present straight to the client. So here is the thing that you got to do. Because remember, I'm coming back to this word called creativity. And we said, the longer that you stay at a company, the less creative you get, the more you get put in a box. I'm going to say to you the opposite happens. The longer you stay in the company, the more creative you should be able to get. Why? Because after every 6 months or after every year, the boss or the client, even if it's pick and pay, they want something fresh. But they don't want to let it come from outside, they want to let it come from inside. So what they do is they'll send you on a course, or they'll let you go and do a design course, or they'll send you something, but because they want it to come from you. So if you then present some of your work, we can be a little bit more creative in this way. We can add a little bit more grunge, we can add a little bit more pop, we can be a little bit more creative, but we're still sticking in the rules. You see, every company has got what we call the design rules. And they don't want you to go outside the boundary. But within the boundaries of it, you can still be creative and change the rules. Yeah?
One question. Do you only get those three style designs for...
Basically, yes.
Okay.
Basically. You can basically yes. But they'll borrow elements. Okay. So I'm going to say to you, have you ever looked, I don't want to mention any retail ads or whatever, but I have seen Woolworths do a campaign that was creative and still within the rules. Okay, but they haven't done a campaign. That was done last year and I showed it to my students and it was great. I'm not thinking in our companies or businesses or shops or retails or in the malls or any company at the moment is really running a campaign. Do you think there's any campaign running at the moment? Think of any campaign. No. Woolworths is still Woolworths. Checkers is still doing their way, Checkers way. They're not running a special campaign.
I know the Willies in Durban will have specials at the
No, but that's different. That's when it comes from the business, when they want to run a campaign, then they spread it throughout all of their shops. The last year's campaign with Woolworths is where they, I'll see if I still got it, but anyway, usually when you run a campaign, then they want a bit of creativity into it. But you can be creative the longer you stay. You can be creative. So it's up to you to be creative within the boundaries. Okay, I just want to go back to this part of the client. I just want to go back to the client design and art director. Look, there's nothing wrong with doing boring for 3 months. But afterwards, you should be putting your own design proposals to the front. Let me tell you, it's fantastic working for a little creative design shop. Why? Because they do websites, they do creative designs, they've got many clients, and you can jump from one client to the next client to the next client. So when we do CTC, we've got a certain style, but when we do Nadine, you've got to change to Nadine's style. So Nadine's got a different style to CTC. So if you work on CTC for a while and you jump over to the Nadine, it's exciting because it's new, it's different. Because they've all got different styles and rules. And every client has got different styles and rules. And now we're going to PDIQ and they're going to have different styles and rules. So it's nice to jump over from client to client. But if you're at one company, they've only got one style, one culture. You can't jump around on different clients. So that's why it's nice to go and work for a little design shop. But even within that company you're working for, you can get a bit creative within time by doing different proposals. But your role in the beginning is I want you to get a job where you get paid. So I want you to be successful at the job and get paid. And the minimum I want you to get paid is 5,000 Rand as a starting point. Because from starting point, you can have experience at the company. And then you can jump to a bigger company. And then you can do freelance work on your own as a way to increase your creativity. And then your freelance work gets accepted quicker as well. And then eventually I want you to be able to become entrepreneurs where your design can earn you money. Right, so for the moment, I want you to just understand this concept for me. But it's mostly important for the two at the back. It's not really important for you guys in the front. Okay, so at the brief, you've got to ask questions and you've got to show the progress as you go along. Okay, now I want to just comment to you what's good design and what's bad design. Okay, rag. Is there a rag somewhere, Colin? So maybe look in the other room as well. Okay, now, let's now start evaluating. Right, now guys, I want you in class to learn about the classic design and the creating the harmony. Because when you get onto the internship with me, that's the one I'm going to focus on the mostly because that's the one that's going to sell. Right, now, the last lecture we had, I was focusing you on two things, and I'm trying to keep keywords. I'm always using keywords so that you can remember it. Okay, so on last week, the two things I was focusing on was, or the two keywords were what? Okay, I'm gonna give you it easy to remember. It was M of M. Okay, so how are you going to remember M of M? M of M. Isn't there like sweets called M&M? Okay, so think of the M&M sweets. Then you remember this principle of M of M. And what does M of M stand for? You guys weren't here, so I'm going to just... What does it stand for? You were here, eh? Who were here at the class? You were here? Okay. Marriage of?
I only know the marriage one. Only that part.
Okay, so here's what I'm going to say to you. Okay, of everybody in my class, right, I'm giving this lecture again. I don't mind if you don't remember. I don't mind if you, because you're not doing internship yet. I don't even mind if you don't remember, but you should be at my classes, eh? But I'm worried if Jay doesn't remember. So I'm actually now giving this whole lecture to Jay. Why? Because she's doing internships with me, so she has to know it. I prefer the rag, but doesn't matter. Yes. Yeah. Okay. M&M stands for marriage of message. Marriage of message. So you've got to understand marriage of message. What's the second thing you've got to understand?
Done.
Yes. You've got to understand those two things. So I'm going to repeat those things again to you today because I want to see how you apply it again in a simple design. Because I'm going to be building around now on this marriage of message and tone. And if you just understand these two things, marriage of message and tone, your design will improve immediately as well. Okay, so marriage of message. To the client that's paying, right? What do you think is the most important thing for the client when you present him a layout design? What's the most important thing for the client when you present him a layout and design? It's the message. It's the message. What is the message? You can say the most important thing for you and for us is the design. When you go to a movie, we all go to a movie and we see the movie. Number one, we've got different reactions. I like the movie, I don't like the movie. I like the design, I don't like the design. I like that song, I don't like that song. Like is an emotion, so that's the first thing we say. Like is I like it, it's positive. No, I don't like it, it's negative. Okay, it is a emotional response or feeling, right? But classic design creates harmony, and you don't know if you like it or you don't like it, but it's okay. It's like being mediocre, it's like being okay. And the okay is what we want. We don't want the extremes, I like it or I don't like it. And the okay means the message is coming across. So really, the client doesn't care if it's likable or not likable, he wants the message to come across, and if it's in harmony, then most people are going to be okay with it. He doesn't want to cause waves. He wants the message to come across. Right, let's use the CTC as an example of the clothing wear. Because now I'm going to ask you guys, when after the lecture is done, I'm going to ask you to choose a sport, choose a sport player, and show me the image that you're going to be using of that sport player. Because that's very much what that we do for CTC as well. Eh? We usually have rugby, cricket, golf. What else do we have? Hockey, soccer. Now, if you've got a player, the message for, now let's see sportswear. So you want to show a player, because you want to show sportswear, and the player is what's going to grab the attention of the people out there. If you've just got to show a soccer sportswear, there's the soccer shirt, and the soccer shirt looks like that with a little logo there, and it's got a V-neck. Then, and if I do a golf shirt, then it's, so that's a soccer. Look, it's got colourful. And if I do a golf shirt, then it's got a kraag, it's got sleeves, and when you do a golf shirt, it's usually got a little logo on the side there, right? And a collar, collar and a little logo. Now, immediately I can see that soccer, because there's a fancy design and color, 2 colors, 3 colors, and there's the little emblem of the club, and it's a V-neck. And here it's a golf shirt. Why? Because it stops because of the collar, and it's just got the logo, and the rest is plain. So now you can see the difference between the two. And if the client wants to sell a golf shirt, then he's happy just to have the golf shirt there and say, golf shirts. We do embroidery at CTC. We do golf shirts. We'll brand your logo onto a golf shirt. And when he's doing the shirts here, he's not saying we'll brand your logo with embroidery. This is embroidery. Embroidery, your brand, your logo. Brand means your logo. But when he's doing that shirt, the soccer shirt, what is he trying to say? He'll say, we're not going to make embroidery. We're going to give you your whole soccer shirt. We'll give the shirt. We'll make your shirt. And we'll put on your club logo. But if you don't know what if you're not going to tell me, and then I can't make you the shirt if I don't know what the colors of your club is. Because you don't want it just to be a plain blue or a plain white or plain black like these people in embroidery don't care. Now they want some design. Now you can offer them the design, or you can present the design, but that's the message. That's what the client wants. He wants to produce 20 shirts. He wants to produce 20 with the logo on. And he wants to tell the people out there that I do soccer shirts and I do golf embroidery. So you want to let the people know out there you're doing golf shirts. And if you just show the shirt and say, we do soccer shirts and we do embroidery, it's boring. But guess what? He'll prefer boring. Because it's going to show the soccer shirt, it's going to show it, and it's going to be boring, but at least he's going to get the message across. And the message is, he's going to have some text in it. He's going to have his logo, and he's going to have some text in. He might say something like, soccer shirts, we manufacture soccer shirts. So he'll have some, and if its wording is somewhere in there, then he's going to be happy. Manufacturers of soccer shirts, manufacturers of embroidered golf shirts. He's going to be happy. And it's going to be okay, and it's going to be boring. If you present it, it's going to be okay. But guess what's going to happen? He's been in the soccer industry and in this sportswear industry for years. So he knows what other people present. And he's going to maybe find yours a little bit too boring. But he's going to be okay with it if your price is right. Okay? That's how they think. That's how the client thinks. But you as the designer or the presenter trying to sell that to him, what do you have to do? Research. None of you do research. Why? What are you researching? You are researching what the other companies doing, what the other designs look like, what the other things are looking like. You are looking at the rules of it, what all of that is. And that is why when I do that presentation with you when we did the posters of the movies, what did we do first? Research, research, research. Look at 20 movie posters. So don't design a soccer shirt or a golf shirt if you haven't looked at 20 other golf shirt ads. 20 other ads. And where do you go? You go to Google, and if you want an ad, you type in golf shirt ads and look at all of them. And guess what's going to happen if you look at 20 and 30? You're going to see what's going to evolve. A pattern. A pattern evolves. And this pattern we call the look and feel. He starts getting a look and feel for the design. Right. Now, when you've done all your search and you've got the look and feel, then you can better represent how the shirts are going to look. But your first goal is the message. There, the message. In other words, if you've made this fantastic design and you haven't done a proper golf shirt or a proper, let's take a soccer shirt. If you haven't shown a proper soccer shirt that looks like a soccer shirt and a very professional and good soccer shirt, then you haven't got the message. Now you're doing the research. Why? To do this part. You're going to want to find the look and feel, and you want the message, and you want to do the marriage. You want to marriage the two. Why? You don't just want a plain thing like that. You want to get the look and feel of a design and the creativity and what has gone before, and you want to bring in that creativity and marry it with the message. And now you can make that soccer shirt about a third of the design. It only needs to be about a third. The product only needs to be about a third. Okay, I'm going to go back to your presentation, Megan, that you did for your client. Those three things that you showed on top, what was it?
There's SSD cards.
SSD cards. And the list was, what was on the list?
RAM.
RAM.
Yeah, so it was
So hold on. So the SSD cards were more important than the RAM.
yeah, the original design was only to promote the SSD cards, but then I just added the RAM and he liked the idea.
Good. So he wants to promote that. So if that takes a third of the space, he's going to be happy. But if you made that SSD card less than a third, he's not going to be happy. You know what I'm saying? It's like the message is the first thing, and then to marry the message with the look and the feel. So the message must be at least prominent in a third. Not 100%, not 25%, but as long as you got a third, that means you've got 2/3 of the design to play with. Right, now the message is a third, but let's look at the whole design space that you've got. If you're taking a third of your design space, what's going to be left of another portion? What has to be in there in a little portion? Let's call it a quarter or a section, a very small piece. You can't just have the product and the price. What has to be in the quarter?
Contact details.
Description, contact details, logo. You know what she means by description is you can't just have an image if you're not just going to describe it. Descriptions means we offer soccer gear at a reasonable price of 2,000 Rand and we're on promotion now. There's a description, there's a language, there's a sentence I'm saying. We call that body. So in a design, you've got header. H1 is header. Call it H1. What is a subheader? Subheader.
H2.
No. I'm not thinking of. Yeah, you do. It's usually H3.
Yeah.
But okay.
I've seen that somewhere.
Okay, but what is body? Body is the description. It's the extra wording. It's the way of you talk. It's to talk about it more. It's to describe the heading. Would you say a heading will tell you everything it's about? No. So when it comes to a heading can be a little bit catchy, but it's also got to reinforce the product. Usually, the subheading says it all. The sub is usually what says it all. It says the message more clearly. So, if you had your thing about the HD card, it's about the HD card?
SSD card.
SSD card. Then somewhere in your subheading, you should say SSD cards available at a special price or SSD cards on promotion. Your subheading is really the message. And the heading could just say something like, even that could be a heading. Wow. That even could be a heading. Because if you say SSD cards at a special promotion, the two goes together. Remember, a heading and a subheading goes together. You can't put the heading on top of your design and your subhead at the bottom of the design. They go together. Okay, I'm still with point number 1, marriage of the message. So your message is in the subheader, not in your header. And your actual image or what you're trying to sell must only take a third of the space. So let's say your product is there and your image is there. What are you using most of your space for? You got to get attention. You got to get attention from who? From the target market, the person that wants to buy it. So let me tell you what I mean by you got to get attention from the person that wants to buy it. So if you've got an ad showing a soccer shirt or a golf shirt, and it's on promotion and at a good price, that's not going to grab anybody's attention, because, okay, let's see if you know what this is.
A funnel.
A funnel. So, if you just show a shirt and a golf shirt in the big ad as a shirt and a golf shirt, and everybody, you want everybody to look. But the person that's going to take notice is the person that wants a golf shirt, that wants a... You see, it's not to say the person wants it. You know what I'm saying? The client must want a golf shirt. The client must want it. Now, who would want a soccer shirt?
Soccer fans?
Soccer fans, soccer players. So how are you going to grab attention if of the person that's going to buy it?
Heading?
It's the image and the heading is what's going to catch the attention. What catches your attention of all these people in the funnel, whose are you going to catch the most attention? If you show a shirt, let's say this is a soccer shirt. Who do you think is most likely to look at the shirt? If you show an interesting guy playing soccer, and it's wow, and it's interesting in scoring a goal, which image is more interesting? A soccer player or a shirt?
Soccer fan.
Exactly. So the soccer player, everybody can relate to it, everybody can look at it, and if you've got an interesting headline, everybody's going to see it. So let's just quickly look at this design here. So remember this, I just took this design here, right? So it says here, it all starts with denim and girls' denim from 89 Rand. Right. So that the picture, it all starts with denim, girls' denim. Can you see that what that picture shows? It doesn't just show a denim pants or denim shirt. It shows a person wearing it and making the picture interesting that you can look at. Right. Now, who are they selling that denim shirts and denim pants to? Kids. Who would you sell the soccer shirt to? The club players or adults? You see, so you always got to put yourself in the shoes of the client and the customer. Okay, let's look at the other one. This one where it says ribbed perfection. Right, now it says there, women's ribbed dresses. So if you just showed a picture of a woman's ribbed dress, it's not going to catch attention. But now it catches attention because it says in the heading it's ribbed perfection. So perfection ribbed catches attention. And the image that it uses of a woman, she's not a child, she's a woman. Right? Now, is the pose of the woman interesting? Yes, maybe, yes, it's interesting. Is the poses of these children interesting? Yes, the open legs, I don't know, the way that they're young, they're smiling. You can now question it, will it grab more attention? But besides the image that was used, the image is appropriate to the message. You agree? So the look and the feel and the image is appropriate to the message. So if you're going to use a soccer player, let's find one soccer player that's appropriate. Okay, so now let me give you another example of how would you choose an appropriate sports player. I want you each to do a sports player. When the guy is a sports player and he's showing off his shirt, you mostly want to see the shirt. So you've got to choose a player where the shirt is showing. You can't show his back now. You know what I'm saying? It's got to show. So the sports player showing a shirt is important. And what else is important about that sports player? So he's posed because he's got to show the shirt. But how would you know he's a soccer player? Let me give you an example. How would you know he's a soccer player? There's some ways there's a soccer ball. How would you know he's a rugby player? Yeah. Remember when we had your question when we were critiquing your work last week, we said that could have been an actor and not a model. So your soccer player that you chose, I never saw a soccer ball, but it could have been a rugby player. But then you're going to say rugby players are strong and butch like a forward, and then you say it's a soccer player because he's thinner. But then, do you know in rugby these days, only the forwards are strong. The fly-halves and everybody is thin. So you can't say bodybuild has got to relate to soccer. But you don't find a strong guy on a soccer field, really. You know what I'm saying? So really when you see a strong guy, it's mostly rugby. But point I'm trying to make is put if he's playing soccer, somehow make the soccer ball in there. If he's playing golf, somewhere show the golf stick. If they're playing netball, somewhere show the netball ball. Okay? But you don't want to distract it too much. When you're showing the netball, image must be on the shirt. Image on the soccer must be on the shirt. Image on the rugby player must be the shirt. Okay? Keep that in mind, eh? Because I want you now to go and do research and get me a sports player. And show us the sport, put it on the group, show the sports player and show that he's going to show his shirt. Because at the end of the day, when you're doing that shirt product, it must only take a third of the space. And there can be a nice, neat sport soccer shirt, or a nice rugby shirt, or a nice. But here, the half of it is the player and the headline. So how are you going to get a catchy headline? Ask ChatGPT. You all know about ChatGPT. Ask ChatGPT, give me 5 interesting headlines for an advert. And the one that we came up for that one was attention sport, golf enthusiasts, because exactly it's got to talk about golf. And then you can have the subheading a little bit more interesting as well. Okay, so let's talk about the heading. You all know, I've talked about the heading before. Headings are never more than how many words?
5? Oh, headings or subheadings?
Headings.
3.
3 or maybe 4 at the most. Okay? Is a heading done in 1 line or 2 lines?
1 line.
Usually 1 line and usually 3 letters. The only time you break it off into a second line is when the word is not so important. That is why when we had Fashion Week, you could put Fashion Week in 1 line, but if week is not so important, then you can make the week smaller as not as a subheading, but as a smaller headline. So a heading is H1 size. A smaller, if you're gonna make it smaller, you can put it H2. Now remember, there are words that are very unimportant, like of, the, and.
Your articles.
You see, so those are unimportant words, so you can make it smaller. So there's the headline and the subheading. Right. Then when you get the subheading can be anywhere near the heading. And we call it H3. Why? Because if you take the height of that letter, you're going to size it up to about a third. H subheadings are about a third of the size of a heading. Usually. Okay? And then body text or the rest of your text around there can be H3 as a bit of a header, but usually then smaller than H3, half. So body is half of H3. This is just a rule of thumb. So half of H3 is for your body. So if you need to put in the address or whatever, you can go half of the subheading size. So if you've got a subheading, go half of the subheading size. Okay? This is just sort of the rules of thumb. But when we do this M&M, the marriage of the message, the key part that people look at that grabs attention is the header and the image. So it's very important that you choose the header right and the image right. Now I'm going to ask you to go and look for an image of any sport. Okay? Show the sport thing, and then I want you to put the image, the header, and I'm going to give you the header. The header is the name of the sport, and the name of the
sports star.
No, because what you're selling is the shirts. You are selling the sportswear. So let's say if you say hockey, you want to say hockey gear, soccer gear, or soccer wear, apparel, whatever word will sound suitable. You can use the word wear, gear, like you'd rather want to say rugby gear, and you'd rather want to say soccer wear, and you'd rather want to say golf apparel, or it depends, and when it's women's sports, you want to say tennis apparel, because it's now a tennis, you don't want to say tennis gear, it's too masculine. So if it's more female and soft, you say apparel, and if it's more manly, you can call it wear or gear. Alright, now you choose your sports, and the heading is going to be the name of the sports and the gear, wear thing, and then it's got the image. And then the rest of the place is where we're going to put the image of the whatever. Now I'm going to say we're not even going to go that far. We're not even going to go down showing the sports thing and the apparel or whatever. I'm just going to say take the header and the image and then marry the two. And how do you marry the two? How do you marry the message? How do you remember? And the message is, in this case, the message is what? The header and the image. Why would you say the header and the image is the message? Why would you say it's the message? Because if you look at any advert or any design, you look at any advert, any design, it's made out of what? Two things, basically, it's made out of. This is the width, and this is the height. You can't have a layout where there's no width or height, because it's what's inside there that you put in the rest of the elements. So, what is header? Text. What is the picture? It's an image. And if you're choosing a soccer player, what do we call that image? A photo. You with me? You call it a photo. If I'm going to do a drawing, what else can I have as an image? A drawing. Right? I could have a drawing of a soccer player, an illustration of a soccer player. Now, when we do our research, we see when a client is advertising a soccer shirt or a soccer gear or sports gear, do they mostly use photos or do they mostly use drawings? Photos. So we give them photos. Now, you want to be creative. 6 months later, you suggest to your boss, we've always been putting in photos. Wouldn't it be good to put in a realistic drawing? Present it to him in the same style and format, but this time it's just a realistic illustration. Guess what? He's going to say yes. Because it's not too far off the boundaries. It's still an image of a soccer player. It's still, but now it's a realistic drawing, so it's a bit creative. You see what I'm saying? So you can be creative further down the line. But you're still staying within the boundaries. He's expecting a soccer player with soccer gear. And then when you do the third of the design, there you'll have his photo of what he produces, so you'll be happy. It doesn't matter how you do the catching of the attention. Text and image is important. Okay? Any design consists of text and image. So you've got to marriage the text and the image. And how do you marriage the text and the image? You first look at the header and the image, and you try to create harmony between the header and the image. And when you've got a header, try to keep the marriage between the header and the sub. Then there's got to be a marriage between header and sub. Right? And when there's a marriage between header and sub and header and image, when those are married, then you can decide how do you put it onto the page. And then once you've got that married and you want to put it onto the page, the moment that it's married and you want to put it onto the page, immediately you're going into tone. That's when you start using tone. And tone is asking you two things. It's asking you what is the dominant color and what is the second color. And it's asking you where is the light and the dark. Okay. That is when you put it onto the page. And then when you put it onto the page, you have to decide how much are you going to focus on it. So I'm going to say to you, if you've got to imagine in your mind, half of the ad is already taken. Okay? So if I'm going to ask you now, let's do a design just with the heading and the text. We're going to assume, I'm going to ask you to make that design square as opposed to landscape or portrait. No, you won't find a square design. Let me tell you, you won't find a square design. Have you ever seen a completely square design? No, you don't get a square design.
Instagram?
Huh?
Instagram?
Yes, but that's mostly because it wants to be photography. Okay. When you do photography, you want square. But when you want advert, sell, message, brochure, you want vertical or you want horizontal. Why? Because the square part is where it grabs attention, and then the further down the part, as you go down the list, you can put all the other stuff. Alright? So if you noticed, when you grab attention, it's towards the top. So make something more or less square, but you can make it slightly longer than square, just slightly, but you're only going to put in your sports person and the name of the heading. Now, how do you put, once you've married it, okay, let's say there's the heading. Okay, so quickly, how do you marry a header and an image?
The image and the
Close together, and
same size and balance as well.
balanced, yes. So you're saying close together, balanced. So what's got to balance? The header has got to balance to the image. A subheader doesn't really have to balance that much because it's smaller. Remember, a subheader is a third of the size. But if the header has got a smaller word, like if you had Fashion Week, then try to put the weak somewhere in the middle. You know how we try to balance it symmetrical? Because it was an important word. But a subheading you can put either to the left or the right or to wherever. But it doesn't have to be so balanced. Why? Because at the end of the day, you're going to balance that with some elements in the design. But usually a subheader, how many lines does a subheader have? One or two. You can have one or two. Okay? But usually you're going to have one, but you can have one or two. Okay, so once you've married the two by putting it close together, putting it balanced, putting it together, now you're going to put it onto the design. What then becomes important once you start putting it into the design area? How far or how near it is.
Is that now the text and the image?
The text and the image. You've created it separately. So why I'm saying to you guys, don't design on your page. Remember in Corel Draw, you've got a width and a height, right? You've got a width and a height. So forget about working on that page. First work on your most important element. So even in your design that you did with the 3 SDS cards, just see how does the SDS cards work with the image that you had of the now, whatever, and it worked well, and then you decided to put onto the page. Okay? And when you put it onto the page, Classic would say put it in the middle and depending on how far you zoom in and out.
So what is the word, sorry, just one sentence for this. What makes the distance, you said, the header and subheader and the image, and what determines the distance? Yeah, like what is that about? Okay, so what determines the distance is, remember when you have an image and you've got the text, you're going to have a background. Now the background is another design element consideration. And I'm trying to eliminate it from the equation. But the background is also going to influence how far you are close up to the camera or how far you are away from the camera. Okay, so in other words, if you're choosing a sports person and you're cutting out the sports person, they're not in a stadium, they're not on the soccer field, they're not on the netball court, they're not on... And that elements of how much you want to see of the netball court and how much you want to see of the greens and how much you want to see of the background is going to determine how far you zoom in and out. If it's not important, you'll be zoomed in close. If it's important, if it's becoming a little bit important, you'll zoom out further. You agree what I'm saying? It's the same with the model that we had. If we're showing a model and the emphasis is on the clothing, then it doesn't necessarily have to be on her feet. You can zoom in a bit closer to show the clothing. You're always going to try and zoom in to get as much of the message, the head and the image, visible. So you close in. But sometimes the background might be important, so you might have to shift it a little bit further away. So your goal is to be as close as possible, but if I've got a background that's important, you're going to be a little bit further. Okay, so...
You hear what I'm saying? The goal is to have the text and the image married and to have it as close as possible.
In order to eliminate the background.
No, it's not to say you want to eliminate the background, but it's the distance is influenced by the background. So if you've got no background, you do it close. If the background is important, then it goes further back. You hear what I'm saying? When you had that rugby stadium, you just want to show a stadium. You didn't have to show the whole stadium, because now the stadium suddenly becomes important and the player becomes less important. When you had the golf player, you had the golf player so small and the whole golf course that I don't know if I was looking at a golf course or a golf player. It's the weighting or the hierarchy or the focus. So what determines the size on here is how important is the image, and the text is more important than the background. You only want to bring enough of the background when enough. You don't want to show the whole background. As jy met my Megan?
Ja. So ek net dit probeer verstaan.
Okay, so let's create some work, then we can see. Just go to your cell phones quickly.
Basically, I just want to know
Yeah.
the results. So in my mind's eye, I'm seeing.
Alright, so let me talk about your design. You've got a background and you've got the main image.
Yes.
Right. Now, how important did you make the background according to the image? It was just enough. You didn't make this so small and extended that right around to here. You know what I'm saying? So you wanted to show that background, but you didn't want to overshow it. So the way you move that to the front or the back is just determined by how much of the background you want to show or not show.
Okay.
So your background, the importance of the background is determined how far you're pushing your main image and text to the front or to the back.
So basically, the distance between the image and text results in the importance of it.
Yeah, yeah.
Okay, so they are. That's just I don't just
Yeah.
wanted to wrap my mind around
Yeah.
that.
Okay. All right. So let's just quickly go back now to just showing you an example of the. I want to compare the two that we showed, that he did and what she did. Okay. So you'll have to go back where you can see the two together, like that. See the two together like that. Now look how close the shirt and the golf player is. Why? Because the emphasis is on the shirt. Now here if you showed the pants. You don't want to show the pants. Why? Because it's the shirt and the cap that is important. Right? So here there wasn't so much importance on the cap, but there was a lot more importance on the shirt, but the cap was there big. Now where's his cap? Okay, so he had importance on the cap, and he showed the cap slightly in there. But but here you're showing all the apparel, so you're showing the shirts and the cap. Where's he showing the cap here, and where's he showing the shirts? It's the message isn't coming through there. But let's see if he's married the heading and the image. So the image was the golf player, and there's the message clearly. It's got the same weighting, more or less the same importance. Whereas on this one, it's got the same size and importance, but why can't you read golf enthusiasts as clearly as that? Why? Because he never spent time on number 2. Tone, tone, tone. What does number 2 tell you about tone? It's about dark and light. So his greens on enthusiasts is all very light. The background is light, the foreground is light. Remember when we talk about dark and light, we said there's a front, a middle, and a back. And we changed it and we said when you look at something at the front, it's light. And when you look towards the middle, it's a bit darker. And when you look to the back, it's very dark. That's creating light and dark and tone. How do you use tone in terms of color? You use tone in terms of color by using one dominant color with different shades of that one dominant color. So let's look at the dominant color here. There is no dominant color. Is it the blue or is it the green? How much would you say of this design is dedicated to blue? 80% or 50%? Well done. You're understanding it 100%. 50% of that design is showing blue. And the other 50% is showing green. What is the rule? 20% is your second color. And 80% is your dominant color. And when you have a dominant color, what do we want to show in that blue? Tones of blue. So what is tones of blue? Dark blue, light blue, not all the same color blue. The darkest part of that blue is that one. So
do you
yeah?
only have 2 colors in classic design? Or can you have more?
Okay, 2 colors create harmony. But we want to focus on classic design. So, in classic design, you must only have 2 colors. You must have one dominant color, but you've got to show tones of that dominant color, light and dark, right? And then you must show the second color slightly, and that is only 20% to make it pop out. And where do you pop out with your second color? You use your second color. It can either be used somewhere in the design to pop out. In this case, she's using it in the subheading, but it's popping out enough in the background. So it's like overkill. So I would have put in more blue. And another thing is you can put your heading in white to create attention, but even if you want to bring out more tones of the blue, if that was a light blue as opposed to white, it would just create more harmony. Remember, black and white is there to create depth. And we want to create depth. So if you look at this background, can you see that it looks black? But you know it's trees and you know it's green. So it's not totally black. It's like green, black.
So where would you use your second colors?
Usually at the footer. And then somewhere in your design. Somewhere. So if let's say the second color in this case was in the footer and it was green. Would you say now, okay, so how do you know where your second color is? It's in the footer. In the footer. Go for your second color, put it in the footer. How is the second color determined? How do you know to choose that green as the second color? What helps you determine the second color? Somewhere in your dominant picture, with the dominant color, say you're choosing blue as your dominant color, somewhere in that image there will be a different color. So if we take this color, this image here of this guy, okay, so there is no second color. His whole shirt is blue, but there's a tone of green maybe in his cap, but it's mostly blue. But look at the design. Look at here. There's green, right? So can't we just use the green as the second color? And he's playing on the greens, so he'll be showing the background as the second color. But let's say, for example, that background, we took out the background completely and we just gave it a color blue to make it part of the dominant color. Then just somewhere we wanted to bring in a bit of green. So we could have brought it in the headline as a shadow. But I'm going to start you off now with classic design, where I'm going to say to you, don't put in a background at all. And that is what Jade, that is what you did. You didn't put in a background at all. But what happens then is, if the focus isn't then very much on if you put in no background, you've got to really zoom in and put the focus on the image and the product. Because as soon as you put in too much of the background, it could start looking boring. Just to have a plain color background is starting to look boring. Okay? So you want to put less of it in the background. So if you remember, no, I don't want to go there. But okay, if you can, because you weren't in the class. But if you remember your design and your design, Jade, of last week, remember you made your model. Remember she made a model small and she had a big background color. And it was harmony because everything was green and the top was green, so there was harmony. But the problem was that there was no depth. There was no darker shade of green. And only when we made it a tone darker shade of green did it start looking interesting. And also it wasn't close up enough. But yours were close up and yours were close up. So the focus were not on the background. Remember, guys, I will talk, as we continue with design elements and talking about design and classic design, I will bring in the background. But the background is a part of the design element. And I'm not really focusing on that so much. So remember the circle of design elements. Can you remember the circle of design elements? We talk about image. We talk about text. We talk about background. And we talk about color. So there's lots more to talk about color. There's lots more to talk about image, background. There's lots more to talk about. So there's a lot to talk about there. But what I want you to think of in terms of the classic design first marriage the header and the image. And then when you bring it into the design, decide how big it is according to the background that you have. If you've got no background, make it close up. If you've got background, bring it a little bit further down. And then once you've brought it into the design area, then the next thing that kicks in is tone. And tone is related to dark and light. So the darker areas is going to be at the back and the lighter areas in front. So if you look at that design and you put it on its own, you should see the image and the text almost one color and the dark background as separate, darker, deeper. Okay? And then when you bring it in there, the tone becomes important. And tone is important in terms of two things, color and light and dark. And color, it's about the dominant color and the second color. And light and dark is how are you bringing in the tones of the dominant color. Is there a lot of tones in the dominant color? Is there a light tone, a dark tone, the tonal values? Guys, I'm going to end off with that, with quickly talking about the tones, because I want you to go to your computers now, and it doesn't have to take long. Remember, when you go to Google and you're Googling for an image of a sport, let's say even if it's tennis, don't take a tennis player that's hitting a shot like that. No, because it's not showing her gear. As long as she's got a tennis racket in her hand and she's posing for the camera and you can see she's got a tennis shirt on, then it's good enough. Because you want to see the player and you want to see the heading of the text and you want to bring it into the design, thinking of the distance you're going to put it in, and then you're going to think of tonal values and you think of the dominant color and the second color. Now, let's quickly talk about tone in terms of color. Let's say you choose a dominant color for tennis. What would you say determines the dominant color? Now, okay, now let's not talk about tennis. Don't think of sport now. What determines the dominant color in terms of the client? Did you know that every company has a dominant color? AXA is?
Red.
Nedbank is? Woolworths is?
Black.
Black. Pick and Pay is?
Blue.
Blue and?
White.
Blue and red.
Oh,
Have you noticed? Pick and Pay, blue and red, they're almost equal in terms of dominance. You can't say Pick and Pay is blue. You can't say Pick and Pay is red, but you can say it's blue and red, blue and red, blue and red. Okay? Okay, so now once you know the dominant color, so CTC's dominant color is blue. So you can choose whatever dominant color you want to use according to your image. Alright, so if your image is the dominant color is whatever, you choose your dominant color accordingly. But when you choose a dominant color, remember this first. You've got black and white. So black and white is what gives you your color depth, or your dark and your light. So you want to show white somewhere and you want to show black somewhere. But you don't have to show pure black, you can show the darker, to show the black, you can show the darkest tone of that color. So let's say we choose a color green. Let's just take green for an example. Okay, so my tone is, I'm going to choose green as my dominant color. Right, so when you choose green as the dominant color, you know to create harmony, there's got to be lots of greens in it. You with me? Okay, so let's say you got the color green there. I'm going to put it like on a scale like here, and it's a slice of the scale, okay? And there is the color hue of green, and you choose your color hue of green. Because remember, it could be green grass green, it could be green lime green, it could be green turquoise green. So choose,
the street green.
yeah, you see, so it could be a type of green. So you've got to choose the most dominant type of green. So that the dominant type of green we call the color hue. So I'm going to say green hue. The most dominant hue. Okay? So let's say it's sport, so the dominant hue would be grass green, plain green. Then from the tone of green to the color white, try to get as many tonal values as you can. Right, so here we go. If this is green and you are shading it to white, green, 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 green to white, can you see that the green, the whitest green would be more or less here? So it's adding white to that green. It's like the light is shining on that green. That's the lowest value of that green. Now, you know that in Photoshop, by using the function called what that can bring that out. There's a function that can bring out the whitest value of the green and the darkest value of the
Is
green.
that contrast or?
Yeah, but in Photoshop, you haven't done Photoshop yet, but there's a function that does that. What is it, Colin?
Control U.
Yes, but no, Control U gets you to the saturation.
Exposure?
No. It's not Control U.
Saturation.
No.
Smudge, no, blur.
No.
It's the thing that you drag.
Colorization.
No. Damn, why can't I think of the tool? It's a tool. It's a tool. When you use that tool, it shows like this. The panel shows like this.
Oh, levels.
Levels.
Levels. And you drag the level slider. So if you drag, let's say the slider is here. If you drag the slider here to this side, what happens? It becomes
darker.
whiter. If you drag this one towards the middle, it goes darker. So it's when you're bringing the darkness and the lightness to the extreme. Now remember, if you want to create depth, you want to take your image and you just want to put the levels on to see how can I choose a color that is light and then run with that color with the eyedropper to bring it in somewhere else. You know what I'm saying? So if your darkest color is going to be the background, then from this color to white, you've got this color going to, what am I going to write here? Black. Guys, here's your tonal values. You got your color. Your color is then got values going to white, and your color has got values going to black.
Yeah.
Right? This value range going to black, we call
Shade.
color shades. And this value running to white we call color?
Tones.
No. Everything is tones. Color, but if it's going specifically to white,
Tints, yeah.
tints. Color tints to white, color shades to black. Now, if you're creating the depth, you are going to use that color as shades of the darker green and shades to white. Now, if I look at your design, you could use your background to put the shades of dark. You can put your heading as a shade of light. And you can look at your main one to see where else you can bring in shades of that color. Okay, you got that? All right. Now that's to do with the color, the dominant color and the second color. And then, so in tone, we are looking for dark and light. Okay, so it's taking this thing. This is to describe to you dark and light. Think of levels. So I'm going to look at your dominant color. So if I look at the dominant color green, I'm going to see how many tones of green can you put in there in terms of light and dark. How many tones can you put in? So try to put in quite a few. Okay? And then that gives you dark and light. And then the tone itself is the dominant color. So there's the dominant color plus the dark and light. Then the last thing about tone is to bring in your second color. Okay, and how do you determine your second color? Look at your main image and see where is there a spot of a second color and then bring it into the footer. So I'm going to ask you to do a design where you've got the player, the header, and then you're just going to put a footer, a color, and you're going to put a web address. Just put a website address there. It's the easiest way to put it on. Okay guys, let's go. You can do it. You know what to do now, hey?